morning. Welcome to Soulgardens. So I'm driving to work. It's 4:45ish in the morning. Sorry if it's a little loud. My car's loud. I wanted to talk about, they have all these, the P. Diddy trials going on and things coming forward, and a lot of silent people that either stood by and did nothing, though they had deep sorrow within for keeping things, or they questioned things that didn't sit right on their heart, but they didn't know what to do with it, or were afraid to look into it further for what it meant for them, repercussions wise. So it brought up some personal things for me, and I just want to touch base on some of us who maybe, if you've heard about it and watched any of it, if you have ever been in an abusive situation, especially on those deep, I don't know what's allowed on YouTube, those sacred levels of violation, let's say, it triggers some thoughts watching those trials. So I encourage you to watch them from the perspective of self-reflection and introspection and analysis on the behaviors of the people that may have been around your own personal abuse situations, to put maybe things in another perspective that might change your perception on guilt, shame, blame, anger, those types of things. But of course, at the same time, trigger warnings, because they do touch on some things that are upsetting. But I took it as an opportunity to get the perspective of people that knew what was going on but kept silent, and also the perspective of the person that was being abused. Some of their feelings were brought into the light, as well as the process and the strategies of and tactics of the abuser themselves. So I found it, if you watch some of the people that have come forward, you've watched some of the days of the trials, I found it very educational. And a lot of it, honestly, I already considered and thought about, but it doesn't help it helps to hear other people say things that you were thinking, so you feel like you're not alone. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of times there is a lot of guilt and shame people carry when they see things that happen to other people and they stay silent. But they stay silent not only out of self-preservation, for repercussions on them, and out of fear for how it could turn onto them and maybe hurt themselves or their loved ones, but it also makes people feel they don't want to believe that that's really taking place. Like, we like to live in denial sometimes. It's easier. And so I have empathy for the abusers, victims on both levels, the direct contact and the, scapegoating, gaslighting victims, however, caught up in the scheme victims that may not physically been personally violated, by touch, let's say. So when I was watching the trials, it reminded me how much and how deep conditioning and manipulation go. So for people who are abused, now this is my own opinions and experiences. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to get clinical on your asses. I'm just saying in my life experience, okay? And maybe some of it vibes with you guys. But when, one, your abuser is somebody you love, that from let's break it down to like when you're a child level. When your abuser is somebody that you love and you're young and you might not even realize it's even abuse because you're young and maybe that's all you've known, or maybe it happened a little bit later to where you knew something was off but it felt good, or this person you trusted and you love them, so you just run with it because you think there's something wrong with you if you say no, and you don't want to upset the person you love. And there's a whole bunch of mind fucks that goes along with that when you're a kid, you know what I mean? And all sorts of things, from fear to anxiety to welcoming the attention. Like, it's very confusing for an adult, let alone a child, to know where to put things for all those boxes that come up, and that when things come to light, if it's discovered in your early childhood or youth years, there's also the struggle of part of you wants to protect your abuser because you love them. And even though as you got older, or you realize that, maybe your behavior started to change, maybe you withdrew, or maybe you acted out, or maybe you became hypersexual yourself, or there's all sorts of repercussions from those engaged in those behaviors, willingly or unwillingly, and you are brought up to, let's say, the authorities or the counselors or educators, and a lot of people's instinct is to stay silent and protect the abuser, right? Because you don't want to get them in trouble. You don't want to stir up any trouble within your most likely family or interpersonal dynamic of some sort, like a family friend or your neighbor. These are people that you've grown to love and to trust, and you damn well know your family does, right? So even if as a kid you have deep insight into the repercussions of the effects it would have on the dynamics of your family or your social structure, you know. So a lot of times, those inner wounds are not dealt with in childhood, because the one that was abused is too confused and isn't developed enough to understand the dynamics of those feelings that have been now forced upon them, to where they may do or say certain things out of not only self-preservation, but for preservation of the abusers. So sometimes the whole story doesn't come out, for some of the reasons I said and more. It reminds me a lot of these trials. Like, these people they knew something was off, but you know, they didn't want to believe it. They went and told some people, but they were silenced, right? They were told, don't go there, don't open that door, keep quiet, mind your own business. And for some of us as children, we went to the people that we most trusted, or were questioned by the people we most trusted because they noticed some things were off. Their little feelers were out, and I was like, something's not right with this kid. But that cycle of fear, that conditioning, that grooming over time, it creates a cycle of silence, from either thrust upon the abused person by the abuser, or thrust upon and conditioned upon the one that's being abused by the ones that they thought that they could go to for help, or just talk about what's going on in their life, thinking that something's not right, but they don't understand it, and maybe bring it up because it's, you know, just something they thought was normal, but not, you know what I'm saying? It just, what do I do with this? They're kids, right? And they were told, be quiet. Or they were thrown into institutions, institutional settings, counseling or whatever, and we're forced to open up to a stranger. And, you know, counseling has its places, and it's good for some people. If you can find the right counselor, that's, you know, half the battle, right? It's finding. But when you're a kid, and you've been through some shit, and you want to protect people that you love because you don't know how to feel about anything that's going on, a lot of times you're just gonna keep silent because you're afraid it's gonna cause more damage than good, and you want to protect yourself and sometimes the person that's abusing you, because you have love for them. You've known them all your life, whatever, you know. So you carry those weights, just like some of these people with the Diddy trials. There's like decades of things building up, and they carried their silence with them for their own personal mixed feelings or experiences with fear, turning a blind eye, or being told to be silent. You know, don't cause trouble. Leave it alone. So a lot of people go through their childhoods into their adulthoods carrying the same confusion, but on a deeper scale, because now they're at a stage in their life where they know what happened was wrong, and maybe part of them unwillingly, unknowingly, may have engaged in particular things, thinking that in their head that they just had to go with it and just enjoy it to the best of their ability. Enjoy probably isn't even the right word. Just be reserved to the fact that that's just how it is. I think that's a way better way to put it. But it's still a mixed feeling, because there's things, obviously, there's things involved with an abuser. Like, they're not gonna, not all of them, I should say. Not all of them are gonna do it from a scary, seemingly harmful representation. So they come in under the guise of closeness and feeling good and manipulation. So when you get older, you realize that you might carry some shame, because maybe part of you participated in it to a point, because in your head you did get attention and it did feel good, even though it was something still wasn't right. And then until you got to a certain point, you realize, no, this isn't good at all, and you had to find a way to fight your way out of that scenario, with all that confusion in your mind as a kid, and feeling like you have nobody to talk to about it. Where do you go? Well, a lot of people go to drugs. You know, you got all these addicts walking around and people being judged for it. But most people don't use drugs just to party. A lot of people are using drugs to cover up their pain. And if you can get to the root of the pain, a lot of the times they don't need the drugs. And sometimes they do relapse, because it's hard to recondition your brain. You have all these panic attacks, like anxieties from these drives and impulses from years of trauma, and you don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to identify it, how to name it. You don't even know that's what's happening to you half the time. And so when you're feeling those ways, a lot of times, what do? Well, you go back to the one thing that was always there, and it's your drug. Even though you know it's only a temporary fix, at least you feel fixed for a little bit. You can shut your mind off. You can alleviate temporarily that suffering, even though you're gonna, it's probably a shit show waiting for you afterwards. But at the time, you just want that pain to stop, Same with suicide rates. People who are abused, they have a high drug and suicide rate, but they just want their pain to stop. Everybody's just wanting their pain to stop. And we all want to find healthier ways to do that, but it's really hard to do that in a healthy, positive manner if you don't realize that you're even in pain. And then once you realize that you're in pain, trying to figure out where it's stemming from. Because you can walk around with this weight of eternal sadness and sorrow that seems to never leave you, that follows you around it seemingly forever, and it just can't shake. And you have to take that deep dive into those waters, those dark, murky waters, and take them out one at a time, because I'm sure it's not just one. There's a plethora of demons that have been created over your abuse, right? So then we get into, like, say the kid gets to go to counseling, and they're engaged in the counseling. to a point, because say the abuser was a stranger, so there wasn't really any attachment, but there was immense trauma, and sometimes violently, and those are things that they will carry with them probably for the rest of their lives, but you're taught some tools how to manage it. And a lot of times for children, I mean, think about how well you can retrain the brain of a child versus an adult. Yes, but to express how you're feeling, to intellectualize it and to verbalize it should be a lot easier once you're an adult. So the child still is going to have some things to work through as adults at some point, because there's going to be gaps. This is just my opinion from my own experience. Things eventually are going to come up in retrospection with your adult brain that you thought you had put to rest back when, that, hey, why, I'm feeling this way, I act out this way, I pull back from people, I pull back from relationships, I don't trust them. As you get older and as an adult, there's a whole bunch of successions that could have started from that root trauma as a child that you didn't even realize that you're still carrying with you. And not only from the abuse, but from telling people that should have had your back, that some may have tried the best they could, but they don't know what to do with that information half the time either. Then they're put in the position of, especially if it's a family member, it's a shit show, right? So there's a whole bunch of dynamics that go on. We have to protect our children no matter what repercussions come up. But there are situations where if you don't do it in a sensitive manner, discreetly, more people can get hurt unnecessarily. There's so many dynamics. So when people put a blanket statement, well, you need to just do this. Just doing this isn't always that easy, depending on the situation and the scenario. We have to have some compassion and empathy. As long as they're taking steps to do what is best for that child in the immediate situation to get them out of it. That's number one, right? To stop the abuse, to get them out of the situation. And then the other things they have to follow, you take care of in succession, but the number one thing is to the safety and the security and the well-being of the child. And some adults fail children on this because they're scared, they're ignorant, they have their own fears. Some are just dismissive and were selfish and just didn't care. Let's just face it. Some were contributors, some were passive bystanders, knowing what was going on, but to save themselves from, let's say, their spouse or their boyfriend, they kept silent because they had their own traumas and they didn't want to have their relationship ruined by bringing it up, or they were afraid because he was abusive. And I'm not giving them excuses. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying what goes through people's minds. You don't know what other people are fighting. And the point is, the child and the abused person has to carry the weight of all of those people in that situation. That's put on them to deal with it on their own way, and in their own time. So then you have what do you do with the folks that, okay, we focus a lot on, kids that are abused. What do you do with the adults that are abused? Because adults are abused too. Yes, it happens more in certain communities than others. I'm not going to get into all the politics and stuff, but when you are put in the positions as somewhat of an adult, where your sanctity, your innocence, your sacred places have been violated, there's also shame and protection modes that are ignited within an adult person, because they've already lived enough life to know how society and the people around them and their dynamic will react, because they know them. There's a history there. There's already been relationships and a dynamic. You know how it flows there. So when something happens to you as an adult, it's not always the first inclination or instinct to go to the authorities for help. We've watched many women and men come forward, go through all the testing, the reports, the trials, just to have their own reputation slandered and dragged through the mud, and their families. The system isn't really set up to protect the victims. So most victims stay silent. It's just a fact. And a lot of the times, they're just not believed. I mean, that's just facts is facts. The questioning that you get when you come forward to your most trusted inner circle about things that happen to you, the things that they ask you are so hurtful. Half the time, I don't think they even realize what they're saying. But it creates a lot of shame in the person that came forward, and a lot of how do I put it? It was best that I had just kept it to myself type of feelings, because nobody gets it. Nobody understands it. Not everybody believes it. Now the people are going to look at me different, think of me different. And even if you do tell them and they're kind of fair and empathetic and compassionate about it, then they're never going to look at me the same way again, because of that guilt and shame, even though you did nothing wrong. But you'll always find something you did wrong in your mind, because that's what your mind does to you. It fucks with you. So instead of thinking of all the ways that the abuser fucked you over, you're thinking of all the ways that you fucked yourself over. Isn't that nice? I mean, that's what your brain does. Well, if I didn't behave this way, if I didn't wear that, if I didn't say that, if I didn't do that, there's a lot of things that society puts on the person that was abused. Bottom line is, Nobody should have put their hands on you without your permission. Bottom line, period. Blank. You know, exclamation point. If you did not give a consent with full mind, body, and consciousness, they should not have put their hands on you. I don't care what you were wearing. I don't care what you were on, you know, drug, drinking, whatever. If you couldn't give full consent, they should not have put their hands on you. But we spend so many times, well, I don't remember what happened, or I was drinking, so I might have did this, or I might have did that. Well, I mean, anybody with half amount of respect for you would have realized that you were in that state of mind and would have taken care of you and got you home safely, not put their hands on you and taking advantage of you when you are in your most vulnerable state. That's a predator. So when you watch the Diddy trials, and why is everybody coming forward now? This is something I ponder. Like, why is everybody getting on the bandwagon now? Because, let's just go from the perspective of some of them. Some of them, holy shit, that happened to them too? Oh, now they're validated. Their suspicions, their gut feelings, their experiences, they're being validated. So they want to help validate those other people that came forward. So they're coming forward. A lot of them carried a lot of guilt and shame for not saying anything when they felt a certain way or saw a certain thing. And this is their redemption moment. It's a way for them to do what they didn't do or couldn't do for the people being abused at the time, by coming forward and help putting an end to this cycle of abuse. And it's also a way to regain their own integrity and their own pride and lift the weight of guilt that they've carried, their own shame, right? For not helping or coming forward, or their own fear. Because when there's a network of abuse, and it happens on the macro to the micro level, it happens in institutions, it happens in families, it happens in communities, sweep things under the rug, cover-ups, it happens. Yes, there is the conspiracy theorist brain mindset where your paranoia and everything, you know, you're putting the pieces together. It makes you feel smarter than other people. That's just a little, you know, maybe a little OCD brain, and it's fun to put little scenarios together, and it keeps you alert to see if, you know, is that really happening? And a lot of the times, the people that do things like that, sometimes I'm guilty of it myself. It kind of, this shit, like with the Diddy trials, it's kind of like validating for us little OCD brains. See, this shit is real. People do all this weird shit underground. So the reason why I bring this up is just to let anybody know out there, and I'm sorry if I can't look at the camera because I'm driving the way it's set up, is I understand that you are confused, maybe when you were younger, And then you might carry some guilt or shame. I understand that as you got older and you realized what happened to you was wrong and that it shouldn't have happened to you, whether you succumbed and gave up and just gave in to the circumstances in which you were put in. And I understand that you developed probably a fight, flight, freeze, fawn, whatever type of responses. There's another one that they categorize you in. Understand that those attachment styles, those intimacy styles that you have now have been affected on some level by your experiences. And I just implore you and encourage you, even if you're not comfortable going to a counselor, seeking other ways to heal yourself, to get to know yourself, to learn yourself as to why you do what you do as an adult, why you behave the way you behave as an adult. Especially if you want healthy, I'm trying to fix that, healthy adult relationships. It's damn hard to keep a healthy relationship with an intimate partner when you don't understand what your needs are and able to vocalize them. And if you go around in reactionary mode and your partner doesn't understand why you're acting in such a way, or why you need what you need, it's harder to maintain and sustain a deep intimacy and a trust in a relationship, because you've learned not to trust people. You've learned only that you could trust yourself. You've learned to hide parts of you out of shame and guilt, and that those parts of you have to remain hidden because they won't be accepted or loved. But that's not true. The right person will love and accept you for those things. They will have compassion for those, and they will work around your triggers the best they can while you're healing those triggers. It's your responsibility to heal them. But when you know why you're doing certain things, and you have a relationship with a partner that you can explain those to them, and they're patient and compassionate with you, and they work with you, those scary dark parts of you that you've kept hidden because you didn't think that they'd be lovable or accepted, so you've pushed people away because of it, or you've confused the hell out of them and yourself because they don't understand why you're pulling away. They don't understand why you shut down. They don't understand why you stop speaking. They don't understand why you run away, or there's so many ways to react to things that we're trying to heal. And sometimes we don't know we need to heal it until somebody touches that button, that part of us, you know. I would just like to encourage you to please heal. And if you're in a trusted relationship, as scary as it is, open up. They're supposed to love you for all of you, not only the parts of you that you think are lovable. Because most likely those parts that you're hiding up about yourself are the parts that need the love the most. And you're hiding them from ever being loved because you don't want them out. And they're the parts that need the most hugs, the most kisses, the most compassion and respect and comfort around. And if you can't talk to your spouse or your partner about those innermost parts of you, maybe you need help to do that, because your partner deserves all of you, just like you deserve all of them. So if you're able to on your own open up and they're able to receive it and work with you, that's beautiful. If they're not, I don't know about you, but I can't be with somebody that just doesn't get all of me. Or at least try. Because you are you. You're not just a part or this mask you put on today. Those parts that you cover up still have a way of showing their face. So they need to be seen too. You need to heal. You need love. And it starts with loving yourself, forgiving yourself, and overcoming fear. Because the root of it is fear, right? Afraid of what people will think, afraid of what will happen if I take X, Y, Z step, afraid who will get hurt, who won't get hurt, afraid of how I'll look to other people. Will they love me anymore? Will I love myself anymore once I dive deep into things? All that will settle. It'll ease once you start to heal. And we all deserve to heal. And if we can have somebody we can heal with, support us and love us through our pain, not do the work for us, but support us while we're doing our work, it's beautiful. And you deserve that. So if you had to keep silent for your own sake or out of your own fears, whatever category of the scenario you want to put yourself in, talk about it at least with yourself now and heal those parts. And where you can make a difference in your own life or somebody else's to keep them safe and help them heal, whether it's an apology or an action, or just a safe space to be for someone, or to help them find resources. Just know you did the best you could at the time with the scenario, situations you were placed in, and the person you were, and the knowledge you had. Now we know more. So now we can do better. So my prayer to you, my hope for you, is that you find that safe place within yourself, and you find a partner that you feel safe with, right? Because us people who have been in abusive situations, we don't feel safe, right? And we never truly feel at home anywhere we go throughout our lives, because we don't feel safe anywhere we go. So my prayer for you is you find that safe place, first of all, within yourself. But we're human beings, and we're meant to have relationships, not isolate, right? And we all crave, deep down, that connection. But we want it to feel safe. And sometimes in the beginning, it's not going to feel safe. But if you have that person in your life that you think, hey, I could kind of spend the rest of my life with this person, but it terrifies me because, oh my God, this, I have to tell them this, what if they don't love me anymore, if they knew about this, what if when I shut down and, my PTSD or whatever kicks in, or my panic attacks kick in, I'm too much for them, they don't want to deal with it. There's all sorts of reasons why you would push somebody away out of your own insecurities. Nobody's going to want me if this or that happened to me. I'm damaged. The right person doesn't find you damaged. They find you beautiful. What is it in China? The old pottery, that cracks. They don't throw away that beautiful vase. They fill all the broken parts with what? Like liquid gold or something. So not only is the this precious, unique piece of pottery back together in form, it's worth even more. It's more precious now, because as the parts were healed, they were healed in gold. You're unique, precious, and unrepeatable. You're not broken. There's some damaged parts, maybe a little cracks and things that have fallen out that need to be put back into place. And when you do that, you'll regain your wholeness. You'll begin to feel more safe. You'll be more discerning, absolutely, and rightfully so. And you've earned that right to protect yourself, especially when you felt no one else protected you, right? But don't protect yourself so much. Don't let the fear overtake you so much that you miss out on love, because that's what we're here to do. Find that person that you know is going to love those parts of you. You'll feel it. You know who gets you or tries to at least get you until they get it. And you know those people who just will never get it. Don't cast your pearls before swine. It's just going to bring you down. You know your person when you meet your person. And it's terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Don't let the people who abused you years ago, yesterday, whatever it was, steal your life away. Because they're just re-abusing you all over again. Every time you deny yourself something beautiful and wonderful out of your own fears and insecurities that were conditioned and instilled in you by their bad behaviors. It's like being re-abused continuously. You're letting them get away with it. So don't silence yourself. Don't suppress yourself. Listen to yourself. I'm hurt. I have shame. I need more courage, I'm afraid. Parent yourself the way you wish you were parented. Love yourself the way you wish you were loved. And then go out and be that for other people. Give voice to those who are voiceless. I'll dive deeper into this on another date, but I gotta go to work. But just know, I see you, I hear you, I love you. And no matter what's happened to you, you're lovable. And there's somebody out there that will love all of those parts of you. I promise.